Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Change Your Mind podcast. I'm your host, Chris Ashley. We explore personal development, spirituality, and science. And we're going to get really into the science today, which is going to be really fun. I have a holistic nutritionist with me, so we'll talk all about nutrition. First, a couple of quick announcements. Head over to the links in the show notes. You'll find a link to my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It was endorsed by Bob Doyle, Marcy Shimoff, Michael Beckwith, all who were on The Secret. It was also endorsed by John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, Anita Morjani, tons of others in the spiritual and personal development space. The Los Angeles Tribune Podcast Network. So follow us to see what's going on in the personal development sphere. We're doing a lot of really cool stuff. And finally, you'll find some links to my free masterclass, free downloads, courses, coaching, social media, all in the links down below. So stay connected. All right, let's get into it. So with me today, I have Marlene Zisman. Marlene is a registered holistic nutritionist and a meditation and menopause coach. Her business entails content creation and online education around all things holistic nutrition, supplementation, hormone balancing, lifestyle assessment, science-backed research tools for up-leveling the mind, body, and spirit. She calls all of that a high vibe lifestyle. She's also currently working on her certification in somatic healing breath work. Welcome, Marlene.
Hey, thanks so much, Chris. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like to start all my episodes the same way, and that is by asking my guests what their origin story is. So can you tell us a little bit about what led you down this path, how you got started, what made you even want to do this work to begin with?
Oh, that's a good question. I like that way of putting it, origin story. Yes. Well, I would say I should have a more exciting origin story. But, beginning in my mid 20s, and I'm in my mid 50s now. So beginning mid 20s, I started really exploring natural health and healing modalities and paying attention to what I ate. And then I took a class at the museum at night about Ayurveda, and I was like, this is so fascinating, lining up, eating with the seasons and your moods and your body type and so many different energies coming into play. It just kind of all made sense to me. But it didn't really occur to me until much later that I could make a career out of it. It seemed like something that was of personal interest, but eventually I did go to school to get a formal education in it. And just when I got my diploma in holistic nutrition, my marriage split up, and instead of me going into business for myself, which I had no clue about really anyway, I went to work for other people. So I went and I worked for a coaching company that coached really successful entrepreneurs. And I thought, well, this is kind of divine because I really didn't know what to do in business so much. Or I'd been married to a serial entrepreneur, but he wasn't necessarily successful in like a peaceful, consistent way. And I got a lot of wisdom out of working there and a lot of ideas about holistic balance in life and business was an important keystone to a lot of the entrepreneurs in that program. Having a life was a big part of why they were in this program, which was only for like more successful entrepreneurs. So anyway, my little entrepreneurial heart, pitter pattered all the time. And I knew I'd have to go back into business for myself again. So just a little over a year ago, oh, now you're going to hear the door in my background. Don't mind that. Just a little over a year ago, I decided to go for it, that this was the time of my life where I was going to actually like make good on this dream of really my dream, my mission to share all the stuff that I'd really been immersed in for so long that I didn't realize so many people didn't really have basic knowledge of how to care for themselves and the mind-body connection and how everything they did affected everything else, energetically, physically, and so on. And I wanted people to know that we're not all condemned to just fall apart once you turn 40 and then everything's downhill and like the projected direction that we've been told is the way to go. I wanted to call BS on it, and I wanted to tell everybody that it's a scam. So my mission is for everybody to have the wisdom and knowledge and understanding to take care of themselves and to be therefore much more healthy and vital and happy. So that's what I focus on, spreading that.
Thank you so much for sharing. And it's interesting that you said like so many people don't have a basic knowledge of this, right? Even so many doctors, like they don't even get very much nutrition training in medical school, right?
True.
So how are you reaching people? What's the main thing that you feel like you're having to teach people? Like, do you have to start back at basics, like nutrition 101? Like, what is it?
Well, sometimes it is some basics because I know I have a lot of friends who are healthy, athletic, they look good, intelligent, and they still don't even understand some stuff like, well, why is gluten bad? Or how come I have to look out for dairy, or paying attention to things like, the amount of sugar in things, artificial colors and flavors. So just there's a lot of stuff that I think people haven't necessarily like felt like they had to take a look at, but then when things go sideways, that's when they usually start kind of tucking in. So yeah, I found it's partly that, and it's also the aspect of it, like the psycho-spiritual aspect of how much what your life and your mindset, how much that affects your body physically, and how you really can have more control over it versus it controlling you than we've been led to believe. So a little bit of everything, but yeah, kind of some basics, getting back to some basics.
Yeah, I relate to that so much. I've been gluten-free since 2010, and my Italian family thinks I'm absolutely crazy.
Oh no, that
Because
must be
I can't have the bread and the pasta. Um, and I'm 8.5 months pregnant, and I'm I'm sending TED Talks to my mother-in-law and my mother about how terrible like red dye is and yellow 40 and all this stuff.
hard.
And they're just like, oh, you're just a nut. So, I totally understand. Especially as someone who's been steeped in all of this information for so long. Like my best friend's husband is a functional medicine doctor. This
Right.
is this like my husband and I have been on this path for so long. We eat really clean. We eat paleo, like kind of upgraded paleo. We got into bulletproof with Dave Asprey forever ago.
Love,
All of
love.
that. But it's kind of a bubble, right? Like you forget
Yes.
that the rest of the world, like I still see like McDonald's and Taco Bell everywhere. And I'm like, how are they in business? Who's eating this? But a large majority of the world still eats that, or the country at least, I should say.
I probably the world at this point. It's true. And I think I realized how much of a bubble I was in not that long ago also. And when again, somebody who really was like pretty healthy was like, so tell me what's up with gluten, like had no idea. And I thought, oh my goodness. So I think, wait, remind me what were we saying right before that?
Oh, I was just talking about how it's
Oh,
you feel like you're in a bubble when you're steeped in this stuff and you're immersed in it for so long, but you forget that the rest of the country or a large portion of the country isn't educated on this.
they're really not. And even doctors, like you said, they're only getting the equivalent of, if you can believe this, like 3 to 5 hours in all of medical school on nutrition. You really have to learn how to be your own advocate. So that's why I think when I try and like give information, share information, I do try and do it in a way that's really accessible for anybody, because I don't want to intimidate people with like sciencey language. Some people like more, some people need it to hear it, in all different ways. But I try and, give people some general guidelines, like you said, like I always say avoid artificial fragrances 100% across the board, everybody, everywhere. And then when you walk down the street and I smell someone's laundry on the sidewalk, you know what I mean? Have you ever smelled like it's like the dryer sheets or something? The scent is so strong. And I think, oh my gosh, they don't know what they're doing to themselves. They've been led to believe that you have to smell good and all your laundry has to have a smell because God forbid you smelled like a human, or just that you have to have this extra scent. And then this is one of my like favorite things to go on about. So if you don't mind, I'll just say the artificial scents in like laundry soaps. You're breathing it against your face and your skin. You're absorbing it all night long when you sleep. It's against your skin while you're perspiring. Your skin is the largest organ of elimination on your body. So you don't want that. That stuff is toxic, 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 toxic. So if there's any one takeaway that that only one thing that somebody would remember, I would say avoid artificial fragrances 100% across the board.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even stand walking past those stores in the mall that are like the Bath and Body Works type stores, because it's like,
Same.
oh God, it just feels so it's just like so chemically. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just like it makes me gag a little. So,
Same.
it's interesting that we were just to go back to what we were talking about, like with the vast majority of the country not being educated on all this. But it's interesting because there is this like huge vegetarian and vegan movement across the country,
Yes.
which unfortunately tend to supplement with lots of grains, right? Lots of gluten, lots of just like junk, right? A lot of crap, because they're trying to like, supplement. You can't just eat vegetables, right? So
Right.
what do you say to that? Like it feels like all these restaurants are catering to them, but I know a lot of people who are vegetarian who are overweight or even obese or have high inflammation levels or have leaky gut or all these health issues.
Yeah, that's interesting because you're right. Like the vegan, vegetarian movement has gotten so big in the last 5 years and beyond. I personally went vegetarian for 6 months once, like a long time ago, and I instantly put on a bunch of weight because all I did was replace everything with bread. Um, but now that I know better, I would say people need to get a little bit more educated on higher protein, non-animal protein, not higher sources of non-animal protein, like um, quinoa, for example, is a grain that has all the complete profile of amino acids, the way that is hard to access outside of like eating animal protein.
I've heard that quinoa like can punch holes in your gut though and lead to leaky gut. I heard it's like one of the biggest contributing grains to leaky gut.
Oh,
That's what
okay.
Dave
You know what?
Asprey teaches. That's what a bunch of functional medicine doctors teach. So it's interesting.
Okay. Okay. Well, then I'm certainly going to look that up. That's really
Yeah, you
interesting.
could look
I
at. I
don't.
mean, just grains in general aren't very good for you, right?
Well, they can be really. It depends on the grains. I'd say largely. They vary from place to place. Uh, there's something called lectins, which are like a plant protein or a protein that's in like almost every kind of plant food and grain. It's meant to protect it. And that's in all the grains. So it's not, I mean, it's not just like gluten is one of them. So staying off of gluten, like I could get into this whole thing about the lectins, but I'm still learning about it myself. But, I'm mostly have been off of gluten for like about 15 years, maybe more myself. And I just learned that just staying off of gluten 100% isn't necessarily that great too, because you're getting lectins in other sources. Anyway, I don't want to go down the whole road of lectins because I don't know enough about it, but it's in all kinds of grains. So I think grains can be problematic. And not everyone does well with taking in a lot more, like say beans, high protein in beans. But I do know that if you cook them in a pressure cooker, you will remove the lectins and they're a lot easier to digest and eat that way.
Totally. I do want to comment on lectins. So this is in my
Okay.
book, Change Your Mind and Change Your Reality. I have a
Oh,
chapter
cool.
on nutrition. I'm going to read a paragraph on lectins. just for
Sweet.
listeners, because in case anyone's like, what? Animal, like plants protect themselves? Okay. What about grains, you might ask? Grains have a reputation for being a superfood. Think of the old school food pyramid with grains on the bottom row, but they can also destroy your health. Plants like grains don't want to be eaten, so they've developed a defense system called lectins to protect themselves. Lectins can cause inflammation, leaky gut, weight gain, and excessive hunger in human beings. Some types of lectins can prevent your body from absorbing nutrients, leading to malnutrition. Other sources of lectins are considered seriously toxic. Legumes such as beans, lentils, peas, peanuts, and soybeans also contain a high amount of lectins. Lectins, grains not only contain lectins, but also enzyme inhibitors, which make it difficult for your body to break down food. Phytic acid, which are anti-nutrients that bind to minerals and make them unusable. Amylose, which is sugar found in grains that will spike your blood sugar. And omega-6 fatty acids, which are highly inflammatory when out of balance with omega-3s. So it's all grains. Like, this is problem. The problem, I think, with a vegetarian diet is people tend to supplement with these grains thinking, oh, I'm eating this really healthy food, but can actually cause more harm than good.
It's true. And I think that's a real struggle. I know you said you're kind of like an upgraded paleo. So, I mean, I eat everything, but I don't like it as much as I used to. But the issue of replacing the proteins sufficiently is like a genuine struggle. So, maybe there's wisdom on that in your book, like how to, what are the safe things to eat to help you make up for protein in like a vegetarian and vegan diet. I would say, if nothing else, if I can't offer anything else of wisdom on that specifically, just to make sure you're really greatly rotating and getting a great variety of plant-based foods, and don't eat the processed plant-based like meat replacement foods.
Yeah, I agree. Rotating is so important because you can actually develop autoimmunity from just eating the same thing over and over again. Like your body, like you can develop food sensitivities. Your body will literally start attacking things because, yeah, it's crazy. Like I've gotten food sensitivity tests from functional medicine doctor, and it's funny. It'll whatever. Like I'm such a creature of habit. Like I'll definitely like sometimes not take my own advice, and I'll eat the same thing a lot because I just like go through like phases.
Yeah,
And every time I've gotten these food sensitivity tests, it's like the food that I'm eating a lot is what shows up on there, right? So
that's
that's really good advice to like rotate what you're eating.
And even if you haven't, I'll just tack on what you were saying there. A lot of people, if you discover you have food sensitivities, you can reverse it because it's like an overproliferation of certain food or foods are what are going to cause a sensitivity. And sometimes it goes too far and becomes like autoimmune. But if it's not at that point, you can often, you can do an elimination diet, aka just going down to like super clean basic food groups for a bit and testing with things in and out. But if you take away something that you have a sensitivity to, let's say eggs, I ate so many of them that I became sensitive to them, then I didn't eat them for a while, then I brought them back in bit by bit, and now they don't bother me. So you can cycle your stuff in even if it's causing you problems. Doesn't mean you have to say goodbye to it forever in some
Yeah,
cases.
totally. And what's also interesting is it might not even be causing you problems. Like I've gotten these food sensitivity tests and things show up on there and I'm like, what? I can eat that fine. Like I've never had an issue with that. I've never had a reaction to that, but something in my body is reacting to it. So it's like, okay, maybe that's time to like step back a little. That's why it's
Mhm.
so important. It's so easy to like follow book advice or like follow advice you see on the internet. The
Yeah.
best thing to do is get your labs done, like know where everything is. Then you can supplement based on your labs, right? Get food sensitivity tests done. Then you can create your own diet based around what you actually need. Because otherwise you're just shooting in the dark.
I agree. And then I would add that do those tests and have a baseline and track also how you feel so that you can
Mhm.
see the subtle differences. Because like you said, sometimes it's doing something under the surface and you're not even aware of some damage it might be tickling at, right? In the background.
Totally. Totally. So, I know that you have an 80-20 rule with your diet, and I'd love for you to share that with people. What is that?
Okay. I love the 80-20 rule because it allows me to do basically anything. Um, in essence, 80% of the time, and I think could work for anybody. 80% of the time I eat I eat clean. I stay away from refined foods, processed foods. I exercise even if I don't want to every other day, and do all the things part of my morning routine. But in terms of the food, bulletproof coffee, clean diet throughout the day, stop eating at 8 p.m., managing amount of sugar that I take in. And I do like that most of the time. And sometimes it takes some willpower and discipline, but I do it and it's easy because I know that when it comes up, something's going to come up that I want to eat it, or there's going to be an occasion where, you want to have drinks, or you're having dinner at 10 o'clock at night or whatever. And you don't want to be the person who can't enjoy themselves when they're out, or you're not eating something that you want because you're trying to be good. This way, if you're good, whatever that means to you. But if you're good and you operate within some limitations most of the time, then you're really free to float around. You can have a full cheat day. Some experts really talk about like once a week, even having like a full blown cheat day, different from what you eat the rest of the week. But 20% of the time you can roll with it. Somebody invites you out last minute, you're not going to like freak out about your diet. Like that's just it. It takes the stress off of the, dieting and not dieting kind of cycle, like of being obsessive about it. This way it's more like a lifestyle. And when you veer off, no one incident or meal or outing is going to crash your whole program or your progress or, how you feel. So the 80-20 rule lets you roll with it guilt free. That's why I really like it.
Yeah, I think that's great. And it's just goes back to that old adage, like everything in moderation, right? Because if
Hmm.
you start thinking about these things like as a diet, right? Which like I hate that word, right? In that context, because
Yes.
people think of like, I don't know, diet pills or like going on this very strict diet, very restrictive, where I like how you said it's a lifestyle thing, but it's like if you can become obsessive. It can become your whole world and it can almost branch into disordered eating, right?
Yes.
And again, like you said, you still want to enjoy your life. You still want to have this human experience that we're here to have. You
Yeah.
want to be able to like go to social events. You don't want to be that person that's like turning down invitations to things because you're worried about your food, right? So,
Yes.
yeah, no, I think that that's really important for your mental health. Um, it's interesting. So I'm very pregnant right now, and uh, my favorite, actually, I should say, my only pregnancy book I've read is Bringing Up Bebe, which is a French book. It was written by an American woman living in France, and she's comparing the French way of raising a child versus the American way.
Mhm.
And one of the things they talk about is during pregnancy, French women really only gain like an average of like 26 pounds. Where in America, like people are gaining like the minimum is almost like 40 pounds, right? They say
Mm,
like gain 25 to 35, but most people are gaining way more than that.
yeah.
And it's because Americans restrict their dieting, their eating so much that then like when they're pregnant, it's just like this free for all. Whereas like French women don't restrict their diet. They still enjoy a glass of wine. They still enjoy a chocolate croissant. Like they still indulge in these things, and it's in moderation, like you said. They're not living off of them, but they'll have them sometimes and they don't feel guilty about it. They don't stress about it. They don't worry about it. So like nothing changes in pregnancy. It's not like this permission to just like go like buck wild, right? So I don't know, it just made me think of that. It's just it's all about your mindset, right?
I totally agree. And you said like three things that I was like, wait, I want to talk about that. I want to address that. One thing is I read this book a long time ago called French Women Don't Get Fat.
I've heard
And
of that, but I've never read it.
So you know what? It must be like 20 years ago, maybe that it came out. And I was fascinated also by the woman was talking about, again, comparing like North American eating habits with the French specifically. And a lot of the difference was that they ate their meals mostly with other people and they had reverence for the food and the process. And they allowed themselves to actually enjoy the food. So, I tell people like if you really want to eat that thing, just go get the good thing of that and you just enjoy every freaking bite of it and don't let yourself feel badly and then tomorrow you'll work out a little bit more or whatever it is, but just enjoy it. And I think that's part of this standard American diet kind of thing is we've lost some of the tactile pleasures of eating and all the things associated with it. And I think the French kind of have more of a handle on the whole lifestyle and we're more just consuming it over here. So that was one thing I wanted to say. They are definitely onto something over there that we haven't quite caught on to yet.
Totally. And meals last for hours, right? They're taking their time, they're savoring it, they're enjoying the
Yes.
company. Like Italy's the same way. And then here it's like a lot of people eat in front of the TV, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly. And that's like a more just a mindlessness that
mhm,
permeates, unfortunately, I think a little bit more of our existence over here. Um,
sure.
okay, so I was going to say the pregnancy part too, when you're like only 25 pounds, that was like the smallest weight gain that of anyone that I knew who had babies. The first time I got pregnant, I ate all the sugar and everything I wanted, and I put on 52 pounds, and I was like, oh, I'll just lose it after. And no, it's really hard. I mean, I did eventually, but it was so hard, especially when you have a newborn. Oh my God, you're not like going to be all geared up and working out extra after you have a brand new baby.
Yeah.
Um, so the second time I learned my lesson. I didn't just have a free for all of, eating anything I wanted to. But the struggle is real on that one. But we just don't, it's just, it's learned behavior too. And it is mindset. It's mindset like, oh my God, this is my chance to pig out and eat whatever I want to, versus I always enjoy food throughout my life on a daily basis kind of vibe. That'd be a good shift for people to try and embrace, I think.
Yeah, and the paradox of it all is that when you eat healthy, you feel really freaking good. And
Me
then
too.
if you eat healthy for a while and then you have a day where you're like just eating a bunch of carbs and potato chips and greasy stuff, like you're gonna feel like shit. You're gonna notice it. Right.
It's
And like
very
to me, that's
acute.
the best motivator, right? Like I own a yoga studio, I'm a yoga practitioner, and like when I eat well, I can feel it in my practice. Right. And the next day, if I don't eat well, like I feel sluggish, I feel slower, I'm not as flexible, I don't have as much stamina. And it's like, if there's something like that that motivates you, like
Yeah,
that's the best way to do it. Right.
I totally agree. It's like it's not worth it to feel that way. So the things that you thought you were giving up and sacrificing really were the things that weren't making you feel good, and that makes them less desirable anyway. If it starts affecting your energy, and like you said, if you're healthy and you're practicing yoga and you're doing all the things, then that feeling is better than the feeling you would get from any kind of indulgence. Although you do it and it's like your body's like a fancy sports car. You're like a Ferrari, and then all of a sudden instead of putting like 94 gas in, you put rocks in your gas tank. You're going to feel it. You're like, I'm not going to do that again. You're less apt to behave in the way and indulge in the things that are going to make you feel less than you want to feel. So you're right, it just eventually supplants some of the behavior naturally.
Totally. And I think about too, like I live in California now, but my family's in the Midwest. And every time I go back to visit and like stay at my parents' house, it's just the food we eat, it just makes me so lazy and so
Yeah.
sluggish and just not want to work out and not want to do anything. And it's like it's so I could see how easy it is to fall into that trap because when you feel like lead and you feel like you have to like drag yourself up to like go do something, like of
Yeah.
course you don't want to. And it's like the more you and then you eat more, right? And the less you work out and the less active you are and the more you eat that way, the harder it gets. Like you're
Yeah.
just digging yourself deeper into this hole.
It's true. It is a it's a slippery slope. I feel that way too sometimes when I go home and I'm away from all the things that I eat and my routine and all that. And it is easy to just fall into it. My clothes are always tighter when I come back. I'm always happy to come home and like eat vegetables, eat salad.
Totally.
Um,
So,
yeah.
what about eating organic? What's your thought on eating organic?
Oh la la. Okay. Well, I've eaten all organic and I've been in a position where I couldn't really have any and everything in between. And there are certainly things that you want to always eat organic because of the amount of pesticides that are on them. And there are other foods that you don't need to buy organic because they're naturally resistant and they won't have those same kind of issues. So, the Environmental Working Group, EWG, they put out every year like a dirty dozen list and a clean dozen list. So it changes year to year, but I would say like go on their website, environmental work, yeah, it's like ewg.com, and you'll see the things that have the most pesticides on it. And I would say try and buy those organic wherever possible, like berries, cherries. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I
Looking
think
it
it's
up right. I'm gonna look it up right now.
okay. Good, good.
WG.com is not the correct website though.
It's not environment.
Is it environmental what?
Thought it was Environmental Working Group.
Let's see.
You could probably put Dirty Dozen, and it might.
That
And it
one.
okay.
Okay.
When you here's an easy rule for people because food's so expensive these days and getting more so, where you don't need to spend on organic. Think about things that naturally have like a really tough outside. Like you don't need to buy organic pineapple. You don't need to buy organic bananas because the skin is really thick. Things that have like berries and cherries and like delicate stuff like that, often those are on the dirty dozen list. Are you
Okay, so
seeing?
that totally makes sense. Okay, so I pulled it up. So the dirty dozen for 2023 is strawberries, spinach, pale collard and mustard greens are in one, peaches, pears, nectarines, apples, grapes, bell and hot peppers, cherries, blueberries, green beans. So it totally makes sense what you were saying. Let's see what's on the
Yeah.
dozen. Oh, it's a clean 15.
Oh, okay.
So super similar to what you're saying. Avocados, sweet corn, pineapple, onions, papaya, sweet peas that are frozen. That's interesting. Asparagus, honeydew melon, kiwi, cabbage, mushrooms, mangoes, sweet potatoes, watermelon, carrots. So like anything that has like a rough outer shell. It's interesting that cabbage is clean, but other like leafy greens like
like the lettuces. I wonder if it's because you know how cabbage is just so tightly compacted that maybe it's just the nature of its design, but I don't know.
carrots.
I should eat more cabbage.
I
I
love
knew
cabbage.
most of those, but it is good to know, like, and not be scared into spending like all your money buying organic everything. Some
Hmm.
organic labeling some of it is not 100% like black and white, from my understanding.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, wait, not maybe organic labeling on fruits and vegetables, but maybe more when it comes to animals. My understanding is that it's really super hard to get certified as organic. So sometimes you'll have manufacturers and growers and farmers that are using organic practices, but they're not certified organic. And that sometimes, um, I think that's really it. I think that's really the anomaly that I'm thinking of. Otherwise, I would pretty much trust and go with that list.
Okay, so it's not like organic things are not really organic. It's the other way around. Like things.
No, you know what I was thinking of for a second? It's more like when you hear about when went like on eggs when they say like cage free or free run on certain things, and you hear that some of that's a little bit like,
Like all natural. Like what the hell does that mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like some of it's language like voodoo. So I would recommend always, if you can know where your food comes from, that's the ideal. Like if you can tell where it's from.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about food combining? I know that's something that you also teach.
Yes. So I'm just looking at my thing behind here. So food combining, and now I'll have some guides on my website that you can check that out. But food combining is one of those things. I'm trying to see where I wrote it down. Sorry, hold on one second. Now I see. Oh, because okay. I'm just going to take myself right to the guide on my website because I forgot to put it in front of me. But in essence, food combining is um, just a practice of putting certain foods together so that you can maximize your ability to digest them and also to take the nutrients, to garner the nutrients from them. Um, and so, an example of food combining you don't want to do, like meat and potatoes. Everyone loves that combo. It sounds really good. But the truth is, you have competing digestive enzymes that make it really difficult for it to be like a smooth process for you to digest. Another thing about food combining is how fast a food will break down, and layering things so that you don't have light things sitting decomposing in your digestive system, kind of like breaking down, while heavier things are blocking the passage, so to speak. So like eating berries at the end of a meal and really light things at the end of the meal or dessert can sometimes cause that, because if you think of everything you eat in a meal, you have like meat and veg. I guess this is your stomach. Only you can see me right now. But and then if you put the stuff on top, you have to wait for the heavier things to digest first. So that's why it's good to have. That's why the tradition of having like salad at the early onset of the meal, at the beginning of the meal, makes more sense. But you want to look out for. Hang on, I got to find this. I have to find this guide. Sorry, give me 1 second here. I'm just gonna go. Okay, I'm just gonna have to wait because I don't know where I put it to give you all the combinations. Ugh. I'm sorry, my bad. No, it's not there either. Okay, so let me just think for a second. Okay, so food combining. So anyway, I will share the link where you'll be able to find the list of the food combining stuff on my website. But you can combine, okay, so if you have like fats, carbs, and protein groups at every meal, then something like, okay, high quality fats, olive oil, avocado, those kinds of things, grass fed butter, can go with anything. You can eat those with anything without any real issues. Grains, beans and rice and carby vegetables go together well. And then it's the starchy carbs you want to avoid eating with proteins. And you want to also stick with, and this is kind of hard to do sometimes depending on how you eat, but stick with one protein in the meal, one animal protein, like per meal. So I mean, I love a good pad thai that has like shrimp, chicken, tofu, and egg in it. But sometimes that can do a number on you. And it's because, again, you have like competing enzymes and proteins at work at the same time. That was my
Awesome.
bungled way of talking about that. Yeah, sorry, that could have been a little bit more eloquent, but somehow it disappeared from my notes. My apologies.
Another thing I do with every meal is take digestive enzymes too. That's like really, really helpful too. If you feel like you're bloated after a meal or you're just you feel like things aren't digesting as well, that's like always a good little hack.
I agree. I usually take like 3 or 4 before a meal if I know it's going to have some offenders or some things that usually make my stomach upset. Do you take them with your meal or do you do them beforehand?
I do it like right before I start eating.
You do. Okay. I definitely recommend people to have digestive enzymes at least on hand at home.
Yeah, no, it's really fascinating. So my best friend's husband is a functional medicine doctor, and he ran my labs, and it was like my pancreas numbers were low. I don't remember, low or high, whatever they're not supposed to be. And he was like,
Yeah.
try taking these digestive enzymes. And then we tested again like a month later and they were just in normal. So now I take them all the time. So again, that's why it's so important to get your labs done, right? Because, it's easy to like throw out advice, but then what's like personalized to you.
Yeah, that's really true. What is your what are the labs specifically? Like what tests would you recommend, for people to get a baseline? Like what have you done that's been really helpful for you?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. I do whatever he has me do. But I
Okay.
test all my like vitamins and minerals and all of that stuff regularly. Like, I don't know, like know where your vitamin D is and your vitamin A and your magnesium and all of that and your iron. But he runs like really comprehensive panels. So
Okay. You're
yeah.
doing all kinds of like blood stuff. I
And
did
like I
some.
said, we also have done like food sensitivity testing and stuff like that.
Yes. Okay, that's good. And you get your baseline, like you take multi, you get all your vitamins and minerals and everything.
Yeah,
That's a
but again, like, and then things levels change, right? So like, get your labs run every 6 months or whatever it is. It's better to spend the money now than spend it on like medicine and doctors later, right?
100%. It's totally true. You either have to be prepared to spend it now proactively or be prepared probably to spend way more on the back end if you're trying to fix stuff. It's easier to stay healthy than it is to get healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a little bit more time. Like, talk to me about intermittent fasting because I know that's another thing you're a big proponent of.
Yeah. Okay. So, I learned about fasting first from Dave Asprey. Love him, big fan. And I used intermittent fasting to help me like lose some body fat and have some like to up my energy levels and to power up some like working out and so forth. But I found for me it became a little bit difficult for me to sustain it all the time. So then I started to read how different it was for like men and women. It can be different around your cycle, and certainly around big hormonal changes like pregnancy, and for me in perimenopause. So I think that's what happened. Like it was good for me, and then it was a little bit too taxing on my system once I was going through all these like big hormonal wave changes. But it really can, and you can just do it like in little bits. I mean, now I'll have a bulletproof coffee, which is coffee with fat in it, but it doesn't have any sugar or other or carbohydrates. But I'll do that, and I usually stop eating at 8 p.m. at night, and then I'm not having that until or breaking my fast until like 10 to 11 a.m. So it's not like that's not like a super long intentional intermittent fasting period, but it still is intermittent fasting. So any prolonged period of not eating is going to be really helpful in terms of improving your metabolic health all around. So it helps with insulin sensitivity. It keeps your blood sugar levels lower. It can help reduce inflammation, um, possibly reducing the risk of type 2 diabetes. It also triggers cellular repair processes. So it helps like enhance the body's pathway for removing damaged cells and damaged material out of the body. It certainly promotes longevity. And it actually, I think it's pretty interesting that it really does it help with brain health. Um, okay, so I'm just looking at my notes up here. So if it looks like I'm looking up, it's because BDNF, brain derived nootropic factor. I don't know if you've ever heard of that,
Tell us about
Chris. Well, it's something that the brain makes, and it aids in your cognition and it protects you against neurological conditions. And so fasting helps create more of that. It enhances productivity of that. So anything like that is going to go a long way in terms of your brain health over a long period of time. and modulating your blood sugar also. I don't know if you've heard of uh, dementia and Alzheimer's being referred to as type 3 diabetes at all, but that's a new way that people have been referring to it. So the managing of your blood sugar through prolonged periods of caloric reduction has like a lot, it sets a lot of metabolic processes into play that normally maybe are probably just like clouded over by doing regular metabolic function. So it gives your body a rest from all the regular activity and let some of the other like superpower stuff come in. That's sort of how I would describe my understanding of it altogether. So I don't know if you've had any experience with it, or have you tried fasting yourself?
Yeah, no, I'm a big proponent of fasting, definitely not while I'm pregnant, but big proponent of fasting. And so many, we hear that C word, right? Like cancer, people get so up in arms, but everyone has cancer cells. Like you probably have cancer cells in your body right now, right? But
Mhm.
when you fast, your body can actually attack and get rid of those cells, right? That's like your normal immune system should be
Yes.
able to take care of those before they become anything, right? Before they cluster, before they become a tumor. So like when you're talking about getting rid of damaged cells, like that's a
Mhm.
huge benefit of fasting.
Yes. Yeah, that's huge. I agree.
Awesome. So is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we go today?
Hey, you know what? I would just say I made like a tiny list of things. If I just had to say, here's like a bullet point list of a few things to look after, just overall health and wellness. Okay, so 80-20 rule, making sure you get healthy fats in, like healthy fats. Um, Extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, grass fed butter. Those are my favorite. Those are my three favorite. um, that you're taking some kind of multivitamin, multi-mineral supplement, pro and prebiotics. I feel like everybody needs that across the board. A B complex is also a good addition to beef up, depending on what you may or may not have in a multivitamin. To take vitamin D, most of us are vitamin D deficient, but don't take your vitamin D at night because it can mess up with your sleep. It can mess up your sleep.
And take it with vitamin K.
Yeah, that's good. I have a formula of them together.
Yeah,
Otherwise, yeah,
good
that's a
for
good
absorption.
that's a good hack actually, vitamin K. People don't often know about that one. And I wrote bulletproof coffee also. I love bulletproof coffee so much. And if someone's listening and they've never tried it, oh, I can't even drink regular coffee anymore. And it just makes me feel so good.
Yeah, that little bit of fat keeps you full, gives you energy.
It really does. Keeps your coat shiny.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Can you let listeners know how they can find you, get in touch with you, what your offers are, all those things?
Yeah, sure. I would love to. Okay, well, my website, marlenezisman.com, houses all kinds of articles and blog posts and bits and pieces, all about holistic health and wellness, and just other things that I've gone on about in blogging. And on social media, I often share tips and recipes and all kinds of things about holistic health and natural healing as well. Also, you know what? If on my website, sign up for my newsletter. It's called The Vibe Raiser, and in it every week, well, there's like a little blurb from me, but also recipes, product recommendations, and I do podcasts and audiobook summaries on there as well, all related to the kind of stuff we've been talking about. So,
Awesome. Thanks so much. And all those links will be in the show notes as well. So
yeah.
if you resonated with this episode, please like, share, subscribe, help spread the good word. And I'll see you all at the next episode. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you.